Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here. Today's episode is brought to you by Franchise 5. Why Franchise 5? I'm glad you asked. Growing your franchise in a slow, deliberate, and thoughtful manner is a smart way to grow. Franchise 5 helps you do this by expanding 5 locations at a time with a Zen-like focus on the geographic locations that make sense for your growth. To learn more about this, go to franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. That's the number 5. So franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. Now to today's episode. I'm thrilled to tell you about my interview today with Sami Sweeney. Sami owns and operates 6 Pure Barre studios in the Seattle, Washington area. Raised in the Northwest, Sami's been involved in fitness her entire life. From early in her childhood, Sami competed in gymnastics and cheerleading, continuing through high school and earning a scholarship to the University of Idaho. She graduated from the University of Idaho with honors and 2 degrees in finance and economics. And while an undergrad, she became an avid runner and has since participated in several half and full marathons. In early 2009, Sami moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where she became a Pure Barre teacher. It was there where she fell in love with the Pure Barre technique, leaving business management to teach fitness full-time. A year later, she became a master teacher trainer and traveled the Southeast training new Pure Barre teachers. In 2010, Sami opened her first studio in Seattle, Washington, and has continued to grow the brand in Seattle for the past 5 years. She also serves on the board of Pure Barre's Strategic Development Committee, is a lululemon ambassador, a member of the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce, and is actively involved in the communities of her businesses. She is doing a whole lot of stuff, and you'll learn from this interview that Sami is one motivated person who has experienced a tremendous amount of success, but not through a lack of hard work and dedication. And you'll learn during this interview how she's gone from 1 to now several locations, what that's been like, some of the significant challenges and hurdles that she's overcome. And I think you'll really get a good insight to what it's like to not only work for a franchise system, but then also to become one of its early franchisees and then help it grow in a geographic location. I really love this interview with Sami, and I think you will as well. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy my interview with Sami Sweeney from Pure Barre Studios. Hello, Sami. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. It's really cool, your experience and your background with Pure Barre, which of course is a booming franchise, and really looking forward to having you on today to talk about your experience, your background, how you got into the franchise system, and how you've kind of grown through the franchise system and expand your number of locations. But before we do so, there was obviously a brief intro and everything, but it sounds like from your bio, fitness has been a part of your life for a very long time.
Yeah, you nailed it. So, I mean, for those listeners out there that don't know what Pure Barre is, it's a fitness concept, and it's a technique. And I was really attracted to the style of fitness that Pure Barre represents. I mean, it's non-impact, intense. It merges together concepts from yoga and Pilates and strength work. And so having a background in fitness, when I found this particular concept, I was really impressed by, just the way it all came together.
Well, so before we dive into that, tell us about Pure Barre. Tell us about the concept. I watched some of the videos online. It was really interesting. And it is different from a lot of the other fitness franchises.
Yeah, and I'm the first to say that watching videos of it doesn't do a really good job of representing what we do in a studio, because it's a lot of isometric work. So big picture, Pure Barre is a 50-minute group fitness exercise that pulls together yoga, Pilates, a little bit of dance, a little bit of ballet, and some weight work into one class. So we pride ourselves on being extremely challenging for for the physical body, but also really good at lengthening and stretching out our clients after we perform our strength work.
So did you always know that you wanted to become a franchise owner, just in general, a business owner?
A business owner, yes. A franchise owner, no. I knew, so I, studied in school. I studied economics and finance, and I really saw myself going down a career path that was more finance related. But that said, my passion has always been working with people, teaching fitness. I've done it since I was in college. It's something that kind of energizes me. Motivating others is something that I love to do. I've always loved to do that. I've been my family's personal trainer since I was young. I've taken, as a competitive gymnast growing up, so working with people and challenging, my own physical self and seeing that and helping others with that has just been a passion of mine. And when I came across Pure Barre, if we're ready to dive into that, I was fresh out of college, 24 years old, and had moved across the country. My then fiance was admitted into law school, and he was studying in Nashville at Vanderbilt. And I came across the very first Pure Barre fitness studio. Now, I'll say that lightly because there were Pure Barre studios in existence at the time, but they weren't franchises. So the original franchise was this studio in Nashville, Tennessee, and that's where I started teaching. And I did that on the side. I did it as
because I think from what the website said, they started Pure Barre in 2001 and they started franchising in 2009. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, you nailed it. So yeah, and in 2001, it was more, it was a concept, and fitness is a funny industry where to license a technique is tough, and then to bring it to, the full business studio level is a whole different, it's a whole different direction to take. And in 2009, the founder decided to take Pure Barre and franchise it. And I was on board. I mean, I was one of, the first teachers for the first franchise. And then from there, the founder hired me to run her teacher trainer program. So I got a lot of experience developing teachers to teach this particular style of fitness. And I think it was only a matter of months until, I was gaining the confidence to really work with others in this technique. And then I was helping run the studio in Nashville. And I just saw the business opportunity as such a great opportunity, especially I'm from Seattle, and I just knew that this thing that I was seeing grow so quickly in Nashville, I knew it would be a huge success in Seattle.
Well, so it's interesting because you really learned, it sounds like, how the system worked and how the business worked by working in it first, is simply as a trainer, it sounded like, for one of the corporate locations. And then at some point in time decided that this would be something that, you'd be interested in getting in early on. I'm curious, did you consider other franchises before you became a franchisee of Pure Barre?
I did. At the time I was really also into yoga. And so I was looking at some yoga concepts in studios, and I didn't necessarily do it with, the critical eye that I would do now, but I was looking at the different training programs and, all the assets that a franchisor offers. I kind of grasped what I was up against, and I was excited to see where Pure Barre was going. I think that they were pulling on some really great minds and had, the overall goals of the franchisor seemed to be really aligned with my own personal goals.
So you actually knew the founder, knew the owner, and she had reached out to you to basically help be a trainer for trainers before you even became a franchisee, right?
You got it. So yeah, I worked for the corporate team, and I actually continued to work for the corporate team for about 6 years, simultaneously running my studios here in Seattle.
Okay, so you're still working for him.
So no, we're 8 years in. About a year and a half ago, I discontinued that employment relationship because it became too much on my plate. We could get into that, but my husband and I own 5 studios here in Seattle, and we have a staff of 104 employees, and we offer upwards of 200 classes a week, and so my plate's pretty full.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
So tell me this. So you go out in 2010, you open up your first studio. Did you have in mind that you were going to hopefully open up multiple studios, or were you just sort of laser focused on that first one and just kind of see how it goes?
No, I mean, I've got the personality that I like to go big or go home. And I knew right away I was going to open multiple locations. In fact, I mean, on the contractual level, I had signed on for 4 locations right away.
How did that work? So you signed a multi-unit agreement basically to open 4. And then I assume, as most of them are, you were on a timetable, on a schedule to do so, right? So you had to open up the second one within probably a year or a year and a half of opening the first one, and then so on.
That's exactly how it went. Yes.
And I've never seen their documents. I've just done this long enough to know that that's how it works. Okay. So talk about that, because again, I mean, people who are listening in, I mean, there's people who are contemplating going into, just as franchisees into a business. I think it's instructive sort of how you found Pure Barre. I mean, obviously you matched it up with a passion that you had for yoga and working out and fitness. And then you worked within the business before you jumped in to become a franchisee. Then you sign on for multiple units. How did that go at the outset when now you're back in Seattle? Obviously you leave Nashville, you go back to the Seattle area. What was that like opening up your first one? And then also knowing that you had 2, 3, and 4 that was on the horizon?
Yeah, so many things come to mind. So, I mean, there were pros and cons, of course, to having this timetable in place. I had laser sharp focus on the first one, knowing that one mattered so much. You needed that I needed that solid foundation, the learning curve of opening a location successfully so that I could open the subsequent locations. And I'll tell you, my personal experience was it was extremely challenging. So candidly speaking, Pure Barre corporate, like the franchisor side, wasn't incredibly developed. And, I was one of the original franchisees. So a lot of the, we'll say like the real estate support and support with growing and developing a new market and the marketing support, some of those areas were really lacking. And I had to learn some things the hard way. And one of my biggest, I put it under the header of my biggest failures as a franchisee was that first location. I went into the wrong brick and mortar space. So being young and new at the game, I'd say I was almost taken advantage of by the real estate market in some ways and convinced to open my doors within a place that was just not of the caliber that I should have.
Was it too expensive? Was it too much space? Because a lot of times it's not just the price per square foot. It's the fact that maybe you signed up for 3,400 square feet when in reality you need 2,600 square feet.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And there was a little bit of that. It was more, it was just kind of B-level commercial space where it was second floor, not very good visibility. So for a new concept, I mean, you want great exposure, you want good access, visibility, all these things to kind of work in your favor. And I just didn't have that. I was in cheaper real estate, and so it wasn't it was actually cheaper than what I should have been paying in a better location with better exposure overall. And it being on the second,
had the reverse problem, right? You
went reverse, exactly.
Most people. It's funny because obviously at that time, Pure Barre, it didn't have a brand. It didn't have a national brand association with it at that time. So you're one of the early people trying to help build that up. And so what you're saying is you went into a space that was a lot cheaper, didn't have the visibility, and you think that really hurt at the outset.
Exactly. So, and you're right in that there weren't a lot of templates for me to model my business after. And what I had seen work well in Nashville was starkly different than what was going to work in Seattle. And I had to learn that really quickly. And then there's this other piece with the real estate that we make a lot of noise. We've got a mic'd up instructor and we've got thumping music and a lot of bodies kind of coming and going and using weights. And when you have that on a second level, non-ideal, location, it created a lot of frustration from the start. So we had to relocate that first location. And it was heartbreaking. It was painful. It took a lot of it deflated my sales. It took a lot of my confidence out of, I could really do this. I thought I was totally equipped and ready for this job as a studio owner. And within 12 months of that first location opening, I had to relocate it. So I'll kind of plow through this, but how that went was while I was shopping real estate for the second location, I was also simultaneously looking at where I was going to relocate my first location. And And it worked out, I'll say in hindsight, for the better. Absolutely. I mean, we had so much more business from the start when we opened our doors at that second location. So once I did identify what we needed location wise, I kind of nailed it. I nailed that second studio. It still exists today where it's been. I've renewed that lease, for another 5 years because I can't find better real estate than where that second location went. And then that relocated studio, same thing there. I hit it out of the park. I found a great space, but you can imagine there was a lot of costs associated with a relocation in your first 12 months.
Well, so no, absolutely. I mean, I know exactly what you had to go through. I mean, first of all, you had to break a lease, which can oftentimes be challenging, and you don't need to get into the details of that, but I'm sure it was challenging. I mean, I'm sure. What did you have, a 5 or 10 year lease?
I had a 5-year lease.
You had a 5-year lease, so now you're looking at dealing with the landlord having to break that, deal with all those legal issues. It's interesting hearing you tell this story because for most people, that would break them. I mean, that would break the trust with the franchise system. It seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but because you had the history of knowing the person who started the franchise and actually working within it, that probably helped to keep this thing going when you were going through some of these challenges.
Yeah, I think there'd be a very different outcome if that happened in today's market or, climate at that time though, because I was very close to the founder and I had kind of proven myself on the teaching, development, people side, which this is really a people business. It was just a matter of me getting my business in place. And I think there was a lot of confidence that I could succeed if I was in the right place and location.
Well, it's so instructive because, I mean, I'm always telling, when you look at, there are advantages to getting into a concept when they're young, but there are distinct disadvantages too. And you hit on some of those disadvantages. But I think when you're getting into a newer, younger concept, it's so important that the trust between you and the franchisor is really solid, because I have never seen a young, new franchise that was fully developed in terms of their operational support and operation team as they probably should have been, because a lot of it is they're trying to grow, and when they grow, they're trying to plug in those pieces. And so to me, in order for those to work in the early stages, there has to be an incredible amount of trust both ways. I mean, sometimes you see franchises that come down hard on their franchisees when they're just getting started and don't allow for the flexibility. And I think it kind of goes both ways. I think you have to have an understanding as a franchisor that, we're developing this model. It's new. There's going to be things that come up. So we have to be a little bit more flexible than, let's say, after we have, 50, 100 locations, in that realm. You agree with that?
I totally agree with that. Yes.
Well, so obviously you went through some interesting times and it sounds like, I mean, with your personality, you just motored through and made it work. Now you find the second location, you find a new first location. What was the challenge of now running 2 different locations?
Oh, I mean, everything you would expect. So at that point it became, a challenge hiring and we doubled in size very quickly. And I employ a lot of part-time people. So of course there's this always in flux, always changing staffing situation where I'm trying to find the best of the best in the fitness industry and keep them for, the long term. So putting in some systems at that, those early days, it really helped me to grow to where I'm at today. So, but I had to develop those and really learn what worked for this type of business. And honestly, a challenge here was that I didn't necessarily, again, have the franchisor support, because they were also trying to figure out what made most sense when it came to just the overall, the best systems or the best practices that we should be utilizing. I think back to, marketing and really getting people to know what Pure Barre is. I mean, that was a huge challenge. I was in 2 very different markets with those first 2 studios, in Bellevue, Washington, and in Seattle, Washington. So 2 big cities that are very different, and they have, unique tastes and preferences. And and just pulling in new people and teaching them that this boutique fitness style is much more valuable than the big box, fitness concept.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of competition, and obviously, the Pure Barre model is unique. But which was more, if you can say, maybe not. I mean, I don't know, which was more challenging, finding the right people to work in your business and train people, or finding enough customers to fill the studios?
I mean, those were the two challenges. So I think in the beginning, I could find the people. I could find energetic, motivating, hardworking, and easy to train and adaptable people to employ. It probably was harder for me to bring people in the door in those early days.
So then, at what point in time do you go? Does Sami stop doing the trainings? Because I imagine there was a period of time where you were probably, I can imagine this. You're there, you're trying to grow the business, you're trying to secure 2 locations, thinking of a 3rd location. You're probably saying, okay, I got to go teach 3 classes this morning, and then I'll have time to run and check out the real estate this afternoon. At what point in time do you realize I have to take myself more out of the business and focus on the growth of the business?
Oh man, Josh, this is still a big challenge of mine. I kind of pride myself on being a very active owner in my studios. I mean, I know a majority of my clients, I care about that side so much that's where I think it's one of my competencies in Pure Barre, is that I love teaching classes. I've taught on average about 15 classes a week since the inception of Pure Barre, Washington. Mm-hmm. I have a 9-month-old right now, and that kind of slowed me down. I'm at about 10 classes a week at this point, but being present in the studios was always important to me. And it's why I do what I do. But you're right. There are all these other things on the back end. And especially as I open, I mean, I own 6 studios. So going from 3 to 6 was a huge jump, and not to discount what going from 2 to 3 was like, because that was challenging as well. But then within a 10-month period, I doubled everything. I doubled our location and staff and class offerings from 3 to 6 studios, and that really pulled me out of the day-to-day. I had to really step back and be strategic and thoughtful and work with a lot more with the professional side, with our CPAs and our my husband is our lawyer, and that's been helpful. Is that I've got an in-house lawyer.
I'm sure it's been real helpful.
It's been incredibly helpful. But I think it was scaling at that level that really made me step out for a short period of time and give the business side the attention it deserved.
Now, does your husband just work for the company, or does he work for a law firm or another business? Or
he's done both. I mean, he started with a firm here in Seattle, and then it was going from 3 to 6 studios, 3 to 6 locations, and I'll tell you, I mean, revenue was growing, attendance was growing, demand was growing, and I really wanted to capture the markets with the right timing. And him seeing that, he realized Sami needed some help, and he jumped ship. And he's very entrepreneurial minded, and he's very much a quantitative thinker. And so having that on my full-time team has been nothing but helpful. So at this point in time, he is primarily working with me with Pure Barre, but he does stuff on the side too. A lot of startup stuff and LLC formation stuff.
Oh, that's cool. No, that's great. I mean, so are you guys looking to grow even more at this point? Or are you just planning on seeing where things go with these 6 and then take it from there?
Yeah. I mean, short answer, I did sell 1 location this year, and that was a huge decision to make. It was geographically the one that's furthest away from all my other 5, and it just didn't make sense for me. I wasn't able to put in the time and energy, and I felt like we got some systems in place where that studio does good business, but could be given a little bit more time and attention and do even better business. And so having divested of that it was my 6th studio, my last studio was just one too many, too far geographically. So now we're looking at, where we're at in this boutique fitness business cycle. Pure Barre here in Seattle we've been around in existence now for over 8 years. And as you know, if I was to sign on for more locations, that's another 5-year, maybe even a 10-year agreement. And some of that, I'm not sure. I don't have a solid answer if we're ready to grow to more locations at this point. I really want to maximize what I'm doing within the 5 studios that I own. And, I've learned a lot from this whole experience, and I see other opportunities at times as well. So I'm just kind of sitting back and waiting.
Are there other Pure Barre franchisees in the Seattle area, or are you the only one?
Other than the studio that I divested of, I'm the only one, and that has been a huge advantage that I've had, is I own the market.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to ask you one final question, and it may, basically, there's a lot of things that go into buying a franchise, and you know that, and now you've been doing this for around 8 years now. You've obviously had a lot of success, which is fantastic. What's one thing that you would tell, a would-be franchisee or prospective franchisee to be thinking about before they dive into a franchise system? That's a tough one, right? Because there's so many things.
There are, and a list just comes to mind. I mean, of course, they need to look for red flags in the FDD. They need to know what other franchisees in the system are saying about their experience. But, I'll go a different direction with my answer to that question. On a qualitative side, I think it's really important that whoever is, the prospective franchisee is really honest with themselves if this is the right fit for them. I see so many people want to open a Pure Barre because they're passionate about Pure Barre, when at the end of the day, it's very tough to make that your whole world and your day-to-day. I mean, I'm really in the business of people management and, juggling the overall chaos of small business ownership. And that isn't, if that isn't your passion, then maybe franchising isn't the right fit. So having an overall, self-awareness and honest conversation with yourself, whether or not this is a good fit for you.
Well, I love that you said that, because, I think it's so important. There's a lot of people out there who, when they buy a franchise, and I'm amazed by this, Sami, and you probably would be too. It's, if people approach you and they approach with a certain franchise in mind, and you say, well, why are you interested? And they really haven't thought about it other than, well, it looks like, you never see them go out of business, or you get some answer like that, as opposed to, well, do you understand the business model? Do you understand what your objective is? Are you looking at one location? Are you looking at multiple locations? I mean, I know for a lot of franchise systems, if you're looking, depending on what your goals are, if you really want to make the kind of money that people think that they should, you may want to look at the multi-unit, multiple location concept. And so there's a lot of things that factor in. So I'm happy you said that, because there are a lot of people who, for whatever reason, just dive right in. And then once they sign on the agreement, 6 months later, they're not happy. And the reality is there's a lot of great franchise systems out there. There's a lot of not so great ones, but oftentimes it's more of a reflection of the two parties not taking the time to figure out if it's a good fit that leads to problems, as opposed to a problem with the system or a problem with the franchisee. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'll let you go. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I mean, it's really impressive that you've had the kind of success that you've had, and it's truly a family business for you now. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck and success in the future.
Thank you, Josh, so much. Such an honor to be on your podcast.
Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you or find out more about Pure Barre, should they just go to purebarre.com?
Yeah, absolutely. Or follow us on social media. So Pure Barre WA, WA for Washington. And then my personal handle is at Sami Sweeney.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sami. I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.